A very warm and heartfelt good morning to one and all. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to this solemn and significant occasion, the Professor K Kaul Memorial Lecture on Is Dharma the Same as Religion? Contesting Paradigm on Disciplinary Shifts in English Studies. We are truly honored by the presence of our esteemed speaker, Professor Suresh Agrawal, our guest of honor, Professor Raju, the head of the department, Professor Deepa S.P. Mathur, and our convener, Dr. Arun Singh, on the dais, our distinguished guests, revered faculty members, and dear fellow students. On behalf of the Department of English, University of Rajasthan, I extend a sincere and cordial welcome to each of you. We will begin our program with the traditional and auspicious ceremony, the lighting of the lamp, a ritual that symbolizes the triumph of knowledge over ignorance. It is a humble tribute to Goddess Saraswati, the patron deity of learning. I humbly request our distinguished guest, our honorable speaker, Professor Suresh Agrawal, our esteemed guest of honor, Professor Raju Bhargav, our head of the department, Deepa S.P. Mathur, and the convener of the program, Dr. Arun Singh, and other respected dignitaries to perform the ceremony. Thank you, dignitaries. May the light of knowledge guide all of us. I request all our esteemed guests to please be seated at their respective places. We welcome Dr. Varun Kaul. We are honored to have you, sir. Following this, we shall have the Kulgi, which embodies the spirit and the values of our university. I request everyone to please rise for the Kulgi.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. We are truly privileged to have such eminent personalities with us today. As a token of reverence and gratitude, we will now honor our distinguished guest with a shawl and a shrivel. I request our head of the department, Professor Deepa S.P. Mathur, to kindly honor as our esteemed professor for today, Professor Suresh Kumar Agrawal. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir. Next, I invite our convener, Dr. Arun Singh, to honor our guest of honor, Professor Rajasthan. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. I now request Dr. Aditi Kalra to honor our Reverend Dr. Varun Paul. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. We are delighted to begin today's proceeding with a special moment, the release of the biannual journal of our department called Rajasthan University Studies in English, RUS, Issue 1, Volume 1, 2025. This journal reflects the department's commitment to promoting scholarly research, critical thought, and literary exploration. It brings together contributions from established scholars as well as emerging voices, marking an important milestone in our academic journey. I request our volunteers to present the newly published issue of the journal for its release to our honorable guests. I request our dignitaries to please open up. open it up.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Thank you, everyone. We hope scholarly endeavor serves not only as a platform for high-quality scholarship, but also as a lasting tribute to the spirit of inquiry excellence that our department upholds. Now, to formally welcome all our guests and to set the stage for today's proceeding, I invite our respected head of the department, Professor Deepa S.P. Mathur, to deliver the welcome address. Ma'am, we eagerly await your words of wisdom.
Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues, honored guests, and dear students. On behalf of the Department of English, it is my profound privilege to extend a cordial welcome to this august gathering on the occasion of the Professor K Kaul Memorial Lecture. This commemorative lecture is not merely a ritualistic homage, but a critical space of remembrance, reflection, and renewal, where we collectively engage with the intellectual legacy and humanistic vision of late Professor K Kaul. Instituted in his memory, this lecture series serves as a dialogic platform for the dissemination of ideas, the interrogation of disciplinary boundaries, and the fostering of academic inquiry in its truest spirit. The presence of our guest speaker, Professor S.K. Agrawal, Vice-chancellor of MDSU University, Ajmer, among us today amplifies the significance of this endeavor as we situate contemporary thought within the continuum of tradition and innovation. I also take this opportunity to extend my warm greetings to our honored guest of honor, Professor Bhargava, former head of the Department of English, and a dynamic personality, Dr. Varun Kaul, son of late Professor K Kaul. All members of the faculty, research scholars, students, and invited participants whose presence transforms this event into a vibrant collective enterprise. May today's lecture inspire us not only to revisit the intellectual trajectories shaped by Professor K Kaul, but also to critically envision the future of our discipline in the light of his enduring contributions. And with these words, I once again welcome you all to this memorial lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for that enlightening welcome. Now, for the most awaited part of our program, the Professor K Kaul Memorial Lecture, to be delivered today by Professor Suresh. Before we invite our esteemed speaker, let us pause to remember Professor K Kaul, a distinguished scholar of English literature, former head of the Department of English at University of Rajasthan, and a mentor who shaped countless lives with his wisdom and generosity. Educated at Oxford and University of London, a later visiting fellow at Yale, he combined rigorous scholarship with a rare humanness that continues to inspire us. This memorial lecture is our way of honoring his enduring legacy. It is only fitting that today's keynote address will be delivered by someone who embodies the same spirit of excellence and commitment. Our esteemed speaker has distinguished himself through remarkable scholarship and inspiring contribution to the field, which is why we are privileged to welcome him to this occasion. We are incredibly honored to have with us Professor Suresh Kumar Agrawal, a luminary in his field. Professor Suresh Kumar Agrawal, the Honorable Vice-chancellor at Maharshi Dayanand Saraswati University, Ajmer, is a distinguished scholar of English, comparative literature, and translation studies with over 35 years of teaching and research experience. He has authored and edited 37 books, published extensively in reputed journals, and supervised more than 25 PhDs and 40 MPhil scholars. A recipient of several awards, including the LEAPA Fellowship of Ministry of Education, Professor Agrawal has contributed significantly to academic policy makers at both central and state levels. Widely recognized for his scholarship and leadership, he has delivered more than 100 invited lectures, actively participated in international and national conferences, and continues to guide research in English studies and Indian knowledge system. His insights on the profound topic, is Dharma the same as religion, are sure to be thought-provoking and redefine our academic perspective. Sir, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much for the generous introduction that you gave. Honorable days. Before I say something about the days, I would say that when teachers are there on the days, the students feel very safe. And this is how I feel when Professor Bhargav she is in the chair. I feel safe and protected. Same was the case with Professor Kaul also. Let me go down the memory lane. I entered the department with an intent seeking admission, and he said, ऐसा लगता है आप इस डिपार्टमेंट में नहीं चल पाएगा. And I tell you, I was exposed and challenged also. So this was both a challenge and exposition for me to prove my worth. But then, let me tell you, it was not a rejection. It was rather an invitation with a challenge. If you can prove it, join it. If you can't do, don't do it. Now, in that sense, when I look at the academia today, I find that there are very few of the same sort of academic integrity of which Professor Kaul was. He would not simply encourage, but would put a challenge also before the person, and thereby would encourage him to come up to the expectations. So I greatly owe to him, because whenever he would go to the classroom, I would find him that he would almost lose his self in the self of the student, would go around the whole classroom, would find out who is keeping which book and by whom. If it is by Ramjilal or Sen, he would call the student, would take the book from him and would throw it away. And he would get angry to that extent that I have not called you here, or you are not a part of this department, because you will continue to read these books. Now, therefore, I feel that the teachers of that sort are very rare, And therefore I feel privileged, honored and humbled also by the respect that I have received over here. Let me confess, when Professor Adipa Madhushi invited me for this, I was in a dilemma whether I have come up to the mark to deliver such a prestigious memorial lecture, but then I could collect the courage and say yes, I would come. Because the other thing was that I would not let the opportunity go. Because this is such a prestigious thing and that should be done by a student as a part of a reverence that he would offer to the teacher. So, dear student, this is how I am here and I owe a lot to him, the way he would teach us. And in fact, later on when I decided to join comparative literature and translation studies, it was because of the way he would teach. I would be talking about it in the discourse that I would be delivering. The way he would talk about it in the classroom also, that still has got an imprint in my mind. So with this tribute, but before I begin, let me put on record my gratitude to the head of the department also, Professor Deepa Mathur. She has been so kind to invite me and pursued, and her team also, containing Arun and all the other people. They were also very kind, continuously pursued, sir, you are very busy, maybe that you may skip. But I said, no, I would come. Arun especially, I said I would come if I have said I have to come. It means I would come. So, dear friends, this is how I happen to be here. I chose this topic because basically this topic belongs to Professor Kaul in a way. And I thought that when I talk about this sort of topic, I would be paying a tribute to him in the real sense of the term. This is what the convener talked about. Now, dear friends, if you look at the history of the Department of English, the history of the Department of English has been very troublesome. And the turf wars have been fought on the floors of these departments. Sometimes there was a war, there was a conflict between pure and impure. Sometimes between standard and non-standard. And very often between canonical and non-canonical. And the journey continued. We could never realize, this is what the other countries realized, like Japan and Germany. Japan became free, means let us say he did not have the legacy of the British, but they could realize that why should English be taught in this country? Even after 70 to 80 years, perhaps we were not given the voice, because as I said, all of my teachers directly and indirectly, they were doing their duty for this purpose, but it could not come out. Now, this is the time to talk about it, that why these wars should be stopped. Now, is there any relevance of these wars? Why should they continue in the Department of English? Why shouldn't we put a full stop, even formally, to the wars? This is what I have decided in my university. I have decided to put a full stop to all these wars which were being fought on these parameters. Because when we talk about these wars, what happens is we misread our own texts, we misread our history, own history. One can easily understand the havoc done by the colonial translators. Ramayana became merely a Hindu religious epic, and Mahabharata was treated as mythology. Not only this, dear friends, I tell you, in fact, we try to equate the pronunciation also the way they pronounced. And therefore, Ramayana become Ramayana for us, Mahabharata become Mahabharata for us, Yoga become Yoga for us, Dharma become Dharma for us, and Karma become Karma for us. To that extent, we try to equate. Is there any equivalence between these terms? I have not been able to comprehend till date, but perhaps there was something at the back of mind, that notion that whatever they say we have to follow, and therefore they would decide the standard and we would follow them. Dear friends, it is we now. She is in the chair and she knows it very well. It is the majority who decides what sort of variety, not the variety that they speak, but the variety that is spoken by the majority of the people. And therefore these wars, why I said that we have put a full stop, because these wars have become irrelevant now. Now if you look around, a couple of days back I was reading the Times of India, and the Times of India said that if there is any standard English that is spoken in the whole world, it is in Delhi and in the vicinity. Now that we could never realize. Still our parameters, we import those parameters from them because they continue to be the icon for us. Somebody suggested me when I was there in Delhi a couple of days back at the UGC, they said, what will you say to the people when they talk to you, your English literature? Because what you are talking about the things that everybody is a terrorist, everybody is a rapist, everything that is evil you are talking about, you are giving a space in your literary work of art. There is nothing positive in this world. And the future generation, dear gentlemen, is not going to forgive you for this. Because our generations will ask us, our ancestors were so bad that they could do only these things, nothing good in this world. And therefore the time has come to learn from these insinuations. Although this is a sort of diversion that has taken place during the course of the discourse, but then I thought that this is the right time to convey this message also. And therefore we need to begin. Let us talk about the evil things. Nobody says no. But at the same time also talk about the positivity that we have. Also talk about the creativity that we are doing. We talk about creativity but never positivity. And especially English literature is, I would say, brutal about it. Because we borrow everything from them and try to depict them as they are. Disneyland, India has become a Disneyland and we accept it. Right? And feminism is a concept, again the borrowed notion, the way it is being depicted, and we accept it. We appreciate also. When I say appreciate, I mean only the positive part we take into consideration, not the negative, what is the havoc that these things are doing to the whole domain. Now therefore, when we talk about our text, even if you look at Upanishad, they were the seminal treatise on darshan, but they were often dismissed as mystical speculations. These classifications were not innocent. They arose from the Western intellectual habit of categorizing knowledge into religion, philosophy and literature, which are quite alien to us. Religion is not the part of this country, because when we talk about the translation of the word religion, it is not a dharma. And this is how we have done a havoc when we translate religion as dharma. Dharma is something different, I would be talking about that. But the Bharatiya Parampara does not divide knowledge in this way. For as Ramayana and Mahabharata are the text of Ithihas, history of human conduct, we could not make a distinction even between Ithihas and history also. Now what history is and what Ithihas is, but we try to pick up the equivalent words. Can't we make use of the words? Because I inquired from the friends who came to my university very recently from Japan, and he said, we are not making use of these terms, the borrowed terms. We put them within the brackets, but then we are making use of our own terms. We couldn't do this in our country so far, although there is a lot of difference that these translations carry. The Upanishad are Shruti revealed wisdom when English studies in Bharat accepts Western categories uncritically, and this is the problem. It risks perpetuating colonial misreadings. Evidently, English studies have traveled a long, burdensome journey on the axis of the borrowed alien ideas imported from the West. We have consistently made a perverse and deliberate attempt to understand, I would say, to misunderstand our own notions, terms, concepts, terms and terminologies. One example of this what Professor Kapil Kapoor also very often talks about. We equated poet with kavi and kavya with poetry. But then there lies a great difference between the two. Poet is not Kavi. Poet is Kavi, but then Kavi is something more than poet that we could never talk about. Kavya is poetry, but then Kavya is something more than poetry that we could not take into consideration. And it has led to the denigration of our own poetic concepts, notions and tools. As a result, our discourses and discussions primarily remain focused on equating the poet, who is basically an artist of words, and the Kavi, who is supposed to be a visionary. This is the basic difference between the two. A poet expresses artfully and a Kavi envisions truth beyond ordinary. Milton is a poet because he crafts and composes majestic verses as an artistic creation focusing on style, imagination and human struggle in elevated language. On the other hand, Kalidas is a Kavi, for he is a visionary seer whose works, as you all know, like Abhigyan Sakuntalam, Meghadoot, which are the representative works of Kalidas, embody not just beauty but a cosmic philosophical insight into life, nature and dharma. And it is because of this dharma that a poet becomes, a Kavi becomes a visionary. Thus, to be a poet means learning to appreciate artistic expression, the craft of rhythm. Now, Kapil Kapoor says Indian ethos. He is not talking about the word dharma. But if you look at the word, I would be talking about the meaning of the word also in the discourse that follows. Basically, when he talked about Indian ethos, he was talking about the dharma. And if you don't take that dharma into consideration, you are not giving space to Indianness in the analysis of the literary works that you are doing. Thus, to be a poet means learning to appreciate artistic expressions, the craft of rhythm, imagery and emotions. It trains sensitivity to language as aesthetic creation. A Kavi is one who enters the Bharatiya tradition of vision. And vision, I would equate it with darshan and dharma. For a Kavi, literature is not only art, but primarily a way of knowing reality, dharma and cosmic order. A Kavi therefore is a seer, not a mere craftsman. A poem of Kabir, Raidas or Ashkhan, or by Meera, wrongly termed as religious poetry, is primarily, and I underline this, a dharmic interrogation of social hypocrisy. A play written by Kalidas is a dharmic weaving of aesthetics, ethics and cosmology. Therefore, the challenge is to teach English in Bharat without divorcing it from Bharati categories. And that is the basic challenge that we have people over here in the post-independence in independent India, that how to teach English in this country without divorcing it from our own parameters of analysis. The very planned colonial design of the denigration of the rich Bharati Sanskriti with its underlying notion of Vaishudhav Kutumbakam and Atmavat Sarva Bhuteshu, that is, treat all the creatures of the universe, including birds, animals, etc., as you would treat yourself, successfully transcended its business and made the Makolian Indians and others believe that Bharat has always been a divisive society based on social discrimination. Our tendency to depend on received knowledge and received experience worsened the situation further. And when I am talking about this, I tell you, I am not talking about these things in the vacuum, but we need to go and trace our own literature. You will find that until the Arabs came to this country, these things were not there. It was their legacy, and we decided to continue that legacy. Our tendency to depend on received knowledge and received experience worsened the situation further. The European philologists and Orientalists scarcely projected the intended meaning of the verses encapsulated in Dharma Sutra, Dharma Shastra and Nibandh. Through their desired and deliberate misinterpretations, alterations and interpolations, they succeeded establishing the notion that the Bharatiya Samaj was extremely stratified, and the basis of which was the divisive Bharatiya world system. I would like to give you one example here. Very often, I shouldn't say that we should appreciate Manusmriti, but how many of us have read the original script of Manu? And when we talk about this, there is an absolute mum and silence, because all the things that we read today They were designed and interpolated by the British. And most of the texts that we read today, they came into being after 18th century, when the British came to this country. They established the notion that the Bharatiya Samaj was extremely stratified, on the basis of which was the divisive Bharatiya Varna system. They even attempted to craft farce and false dictionaries. The authentic and real manuscripts were eliminated and destroyed. The contextualization of English studies in Bharat is still a phantom for some, and I underline this, a phantom for some and a fantasy for others. For the Dharmic ethos which determined almost every aspect of life in Bharat remains to be ingrained in our curriculum. The spirit of Dharma permeates every sphere of existence, whether this is ethical or social or cosmic. Dharma is the principle that sustains both cosmos and society. It is the law of being, the rhythm of harmony, the duty that arises from one's nature and one's context. Hence, a son's dharma or a king's dharma or a father's dharma cannot be equated with son's religion, and here lies the difference. जब आप पुत्र धर्म की बात करते हैं, आप उसको ये नहीं कह सकते son's religion. And this is how we have done a great havoc when we were translating, or when the colonizers compelled us to make use of these terms. Son's religion, king's religion, or father's religion. Son's dharma means duties of the son that connect him with his parents. Likewise, king's dharma are the duties that connect the king with the people. Dharma is not confined to worship either. By extension, Dharmashala is not a religious building. Neither is Dharmarth Hospital, a hospital of religion or hospital for religions. Dharma connects the being with the wider existence. Its vastness knows no limit. The Mahabharata says, और इसलिए महाभारत में कहा गया है, जिसको धारण किया जा सकता है वही धर्म है. And therefore, this is how Mahabharata says, Dharnad dharm ityahu, dharmo dharyati praja. That which upholds, nourishes and sustains is called dharma. And dharma upholds all beings. Here praja includes human beings, not only human beings, but animals also, birds also, and therefore the entire creation. Trees, mountains and rivers are part of it. The system that interlinks and sustains all of them has been called Shrashti Dharma, the dharma of creation. Dharma acknowledges divine presence in animals and birds. The cow becomes Gau Mata in this country. Similarly, Ganga is not merely a flowing stream of water, but Ganga Maya. Thus, Dharma connects the entire creation. It links the Vyakti, that is the individual, with Samasti, that is the collective human society, and it goes beyond this, and this Samasti connects with the larger creation beyond humanity, that is Srashti. And along with these, it also unites with the supreme principle, Parmeshti, the absolute reality. And this is the spectrum that must be reflected in our curriculum. That we have not been able to, I do not say as it is they are to be taken in, but of course in accordance with a global understanding, these terms should have been given a space, but they still remain to find a space in our curriculum and the courses. As a matter of fact, Dharma in its truest sense is a timeless and comprehensive concept of the individual, the collective, the creation and the supreme. This is what I talked about, Parmeshti. It is for this reason that when Indian texts are translated and the word Dharma is equated or rendered or equated with religion, a lot is lost. A lot is distorted. And therefore when we say, Yato Dharma Tato Jaya, we cannot say where there is Dharma, there is victory. It does not mean where there is religion, there is victory. And of course if you try to do that, you are doing a great loss to the intended meaning. And this is what we have done in our discourses so far. To say is to, of course, now people are taking care of it, but then this is what, they could not succeed in their design. But then that was their intention that they did have in mind. The first paradigm shift, therefore, in our English studies is that Bharatiya Parampara is based not on religion and philosophy, but on darshan and dharma, a living, evolving, sustaining principle of life. This distinction matters a lot. The British could successfully execute their divine agenda by equating dharma with religion. As a consequence, we decided to make Raj Dharma, Praja Dharma, Dampatya Dharma, Putra Dharma, Shishya Dharma, and several other dharmas, like the last one, Briti Dharma, etc., irrelevant, and denigrated them as dogma and hence unfit as tools, concepts, or notions to appreciate a literary work of art. And I tell you, this is the discourse that we have in our houses also. जब बच्चों को कहते हो बेटा पुत्र धर्म का पालन करना चाहिए तो बच्चे को पता नहीं होता पुत्र धर्म क्या है. And very often he never understands what is the notion of dharma. Now I do not say that we people don't understand, we people understand, but then this must go to the root, and that root remains still untouched. Our own literatures written in Indian languages, adherence to this further worsened the situation. Means our literatures also to some extent they started talking about it. I can give you some examples after we finish, we complete this lecture. We ignored this dharmic spirit of Bharatiyata and decided to sign in plumes by borrowing the alien ideas. Consequently, the present colonial system was reduced to a standing monument of the mission accomplished. And this is very often a metaphor that I make use of. And you can also remember this if you like it. The British took away not only the Kohinoor diamond but our confidence too. As a result, there is neither emotional involvement nor critical or creative thinking in our programs. And this is true. Gandhiji said long back in 1931, and I quote him, India today is much more illiterate than it was before 100 years ago, because the British administrators, when they came to this country, instead of taking hold of the things as they were, began to root them out. They scratched the soil and began to look at the root and the beautiful tree perished. And this is the condition, unquote. We made a Mahatma, and this is my own observation, so that we can comfortably follow the footprints of Macaulay. We have done nothing to save the beautiful tree. That, of course, now the efforts are on, no doubt about it. The change is visible, but then still human efforts are required. It is a pity that we did not even take a lesson from the struggle for independence. At that time, the enlightened natives, this is a phrase that was used by Macaulay, because he said that they were enlightened by British education, made use of English and their command of English to subvert the power of British Empire. Strangely, it is English education that in a way endangered the position of the rulers. This is one of the dramatic and unexpected reversals in the history of English education in India, from which we ought to have drawn some lessons on how and for what purpose we are to use English in this country. We did not follow the lead of leaders like Swami Vivekananda, who projected Bharatiya spiritualism in English. Such things happened outside the educational system, and the educational system has remained colonial in character. We should demonstrate that the reader response theory, and these are the implications that we should keep in mind when we go to the classroom. Reader response theory in Western literary criticism can be enriched by our theory of Ras. We should formulate our concepts of tragedy based on our literature and literary traditions instead of starting with Aristotle. Our learners must be able to talk about our own writers, scholars, Panini, Bhartarihari, Nagarjuna, Sankar, and their language philosophy in effective English, so that the world may know that we have a rich tradition that can engage the best and the latest in modern Western thought. This can reinstate our pride and pleasure in our own mental efforts that was swept away, annihilated, degraded, and depressed by the then calculated moves of the rulers. We should regain our confidence and feel that we are capable of aspiring to great intellectual distinctions. We should be able to tell the world that in mathematics, medicine, plant life and its applications, music and dance, astronomy, architecture, chemistry, grammar, logic and rhetoric, philosophy, astrology, and many other areas, the contributions of our thinkers and scholars can match anything that has been done anywhere in the world, and this has to be done in English. Now the question is how to do it, because we belong to the discipline. Let me tell you, compartmentalization is a gone thing now. With the invent of NEP 2020, we are not talking about that. And even if we say that that does exist, this can be done at least in the elementary books, where we require a chapter. For example, you can take a chapter on architecture that belongs to India, and then can have the exercises on LSRW. This is how you can give them a space in our curriculum. But that remains to be done. Still that remains to be done. We must use English, and I emphasize on it. We must use English but project India. That should be the aim of English education in general and English teaching in particular in this country. We should be able to explain the significance, and this is what happened with me. Recently there was a friend of mine before I joined here as Vice-chancellor. He came to Jaipur, and again he was from Japan, and he said, he took me to several temples. And the questions that he put to me, I was not able to find any answer. And some of the questions still remain unanswered. Shouldn't we try to find answer to these things? We should be able to explain the significance of 4 in Bharatiya culture, that is 4 towers in our temples, 4 Vedas, 4 faces of Brahma, the creator, and 4 stages of life. We should know as to why the sanctum sanctorum is kept so dark in the temples and not brightly lit. What is the significance of Nav-dwar, which is wrongly translated as 9 holes, through which the devotees peep in? Why do the devotees go round the sanctum a specified number of times as part of the worship? We should also explore the relationship of rag and the time and the season. You must have seen that there are certain rag which are recited during particular times and during particular seasons only, when it is sung. Is there any relationship between sound and reality? And there is a great difference here between the East and the West. West says that there is no relationship and this is arbitrary. But then the East, especially Bharat, says it has got a philosophy, and they say, unlike the West, unlike what the West believes, our learners must know that language is meant for both communication and contemplation. They must also know that our language teaching methodology is both contemplative and revelatory. We must also know the conspiracy hatched by the makers of the Disneyland when they portrayed India as the land of only Maharajas, Goldman, snake charmers, and the Taj Mahal. Why is it that the persons like Buddha, Sankar, Swami Dayanand Saraswati, Vivekananda, a host of others are considered only saints by the West? Is there no gentleman in India? We do not even protest because we know very little about ourselves, our culture and civilization. और जब हम महात्मा कहते हैं तो we feel pampered also because they were the great people and therefore we are making use of the word Mahatma. But we could never trace the conspiracy that these people carried against us. Those who know the meaning of our culture and civilization do not know English, and those who know English do not know these. And hence, as a result, we have not projected a proper image of India, that is our own country, the wonder that is Bharat. Hence, there lies the need for an active interface between English and the other Indian languages. That is also a need, and primarily an interface with Hindi and English. Dear friends, the fact of the matter is that the intention of the British colonizers was to destroy the Bharatiya culture through the educational system, as was done in the American continents, like Australia and New Zealand, and the larger parts of Africa. The false notions of hypothetical Aryan-Durban divide, Aryan invasion theory, caste divide on the hypothetical lines of upper and lower caste, caste-based untouchability, and linguistic divide were crafted. The colonizers went to the extent of incorporating ridiculous and false interpretations of animal sacrifice and porn rituals in Shastras. The tenets of Bharatiya philosophy to perceive every living being as the divine manifestations of the Almighty, as enshrined in Bharatiya Vangmaya, that is literature, was intentionally misinterpreted to create a rupture in the cohesive Bharatiya society. Social discrimination and stratification that erupted and perpetuated in the last millennium of jihadi persecution and colonial rule has even led to the worst social evil of untouchability in this country. This is what I talked about earlier also. Prior to the advent of Arab invasion in the 8th century, the monstrous untouchability had no place. Ved, Vedangas, Upanishad and Arnavke, or the twin epics, which had largely been beyond the scope for any kind of interpolation due to very advanced linguistics, and there was a reason that is why the interpolations could not take place, wherein it was very difficult to incorporate dilutions, have no mention of any such social stratification and untouchability. The Vedic scriptures, the Upanishads, the epics and the sermons of Bhagavad Gita instruct every individual to deal with every living being with compassion, fraternal cohesiveness, and in the way one wants to be treated himself or herself by others. Dear friends, I will just tell you, but this is a fact, but then at the same time, this is how we were mocked at. I am talking about, this is a reality that happened with me. I was invited to make a presentation in the year 1991. At that time, I was working in Jaipur. I presented a paper on folk literature, and there was one expert from JNU, and he stood up and he said, I see that he carries an agenda in his presentation. I said, what about you? You can visualize that agenda because you carry that agenda. But then that was the scene during those days. How hateable we were. People would not give a space even to the genuine things that you would like to talk about. It has necessitated the convergence of Bharatiya methodological, and this is the real thing that we need to do. Methodological paradigms with that of the Westerners, there is a need to formulate our concepts of literary genre. For example, the teaching of tragedy can be done in a better way in a dharmic country such as Bharat by using the fundamentals of Rajniti and Dharma Niti rather than by borrowing the alien ideas. And this was Professor Kaul would do. I still remember the way he would teach us prologue to the Canterbury Tales in the classroom. And the comparison would, when he would come to night, he would talk about our Kshatriya class in this country. When he would talk about the person, he would say our rishis. And when he would talk about the other people like friar and sermons, he would say, look at the things that took place, that has taken place in governance in our country. Now that needs to be done. And that is why I thought that it has become the requirement of the day. That we will not be able to understand because we are not familiar with the culture from which this literature emanates. Unless we equal it, we contextualize it, the relevance of all this, I would say, is almost, has no relevance at all. Our learners must know that we celebrate the arts in a unique way. The classical traditions of dance, music, sculpture and architecture are not seen as separate from spiritual life, but as expressions of the divine. Mahabharata में कहा गया है, धमश्य तत्वम निहिताम गुहायाम. That is, it means that the sense of dharma is subtle and hidden, but literature makes it visible through narratives. In the dharma-centered Bharatiya society, literature, whether alien or local, should have been appreciated on the principle. There are three principles which we should have kept in mind, but we couldn't. Number one, dharma shapekshta. Number two, niti prayojanta. And number three, ras mulyata. Now when we talk about this dharma shapekshta, I means reinforced righteousness. This is what dharma shapekshta is. When we talk about niti prayojanta, how it guided human conduct and governance. This is what we should do when we go to the classroom. And when we talk about ras mulyata, we should talk about the aesthetic significance or aesthetic uplift. How does that work uplift us aesthetically? It must be understood that in the context of Bharat, literary appreciation is inseparable from Dharma Niti. I hope I am not exceeding your time. No? Okay, I will just wind it up. It is Dharma Niti that provides a lens to understand literature as a portrayal of the conflict between order and disorder, truth and deception, restraint and desire. Literary work should be valued not only for their aesthetic form but for their alignment with righteousness, their coordination, contribution to ethical living, and their capacity to guide individuals and society towards harmony. Dharma gives literature its soul, niti direction, and rasa delight. And therefore, all these three collectively must form the part of our appreciation. Now, this we need to do. Now, this is the final para that I would speak. I have skipped out second part of it, but then this is very significant and therefore I would like to talk about it. Now, I am talking about the implication because we need to bring about change at both the levels. At the level of modus vivendi and modus operandi. Modus vivendi already I have talked about, but what about modus operandi that we should take recourse to? Now therefore all this which I have talked about, what does it mean for us? It means that our discipline must embrace a methodological shift. Instead of forcing text into Western categories, let us allow Bharatiya categories to converse with them. For example, Shakespeare's King Lear also be read in the light of Dharma Niti, the duties of king, of children, of cosmic order. Macbeth's fall can be interpreted through the adharma of unchecked ambition, which is the result of calm and lobh that violates swadharma. Because as he is a rightful thane and becomes basically, let me say, a cheat and everything that can be said about him. From a noble thane there is a diversion. Lady Macbeth embodies the perversion of niti, using cleverness not for balance but for destruction. The play shows the inexorable law of dharma. Dharma leads to vinash. Adharma leads to vinash. The play therefore is a beautiful interplay of Dev and Purusha. Now, it is in this light I have talked about several other interpretations also, but then I would skip it and I would say, I would like to pay a tribute to Professor Kaul, and I would say that whatever he did during those days, that was remarkable. And in fact, this inspiration when he was doing it, I just recollected, what should I do? I have been invited, I said that there cannot be a better tribute than this. This is what he experimented in the classroom. I must also talk about that. And therefore, I took it up. Dear friends, therefore, the need of the hour is to transform English studies from a colonial inheritance into a truly Indian discipline rooted in Dharma, yet speaking to the world. And I underline it. Right? Rooted in Dharma, yet speaking to the world. In such a confluence, Shakespeare stands beside Mahabharata, and both speak to the Bharatiya soul. When I look back on and recall Professor Kaul's erudition, didactics and mentorship, I see clearly that this confidence was his constant creation. I pay my unceasing tribute to him. Thank you so much for inviting me here. I do not know whether I could make a sense, but then I have taken a lot of time, that I am very sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It was truly enriching. And to all our guests, is Dharma and religion same? So the answer is no, it's not. And secondly, sir has asked a very thought-provoking question to all of us, that when we have to learn different languages, that's true, but how can we keep our roots, or how can we stay in touch with our true essence, that is the Indian narrative and the meanings behind the word that we have developed, and not lose the meaning of them in any other languages by translating them as it is. So thank you so much, sir. Following this insightful lecture, I invite Dr. Sarojini to have a stage.
Thank you, Professor Agrawal. Your lecture was really very enlightening, and all this time I have believed in what you said. Very, very correct. We ought to change ourselves instead of being taken over by the Mughals who destroyed our temples and built their own masjids, and the Britishers who brainwashed us completely and destroyed our literature, our Dharma, all our Upanishads and the Vedas. We have so much literature and knowledge and wisdom in our country which we have not been able to follow because of our brainwash by the Britishers. So high time we go back, read the Vedas and the Upanishads, research on them, translate them into Hindi and English, and I think Sanskrit should be one of the languages by which we can reach this knowledge. Why do we have to study in English department English literature? Why not Indian literature? Indians have written a lot. Why not read that? And he very rightly said, in the university, there was a lot of discrimination between men and women. In the good old times, it was only men who could become the heads of department. Women teachers were just as qualified as them, but they were never given a chance. When I was president of RUA, Rajasthan University Women's Association, Suresh came to me and said, I am the senior most in the Hindi department, but I know that my junior, who is a male, they are going to make him the head of the department. So I took her with me to the Vice-chancellor, Professor K Kaul, and presented the problem. He was such a nice man. He immediately called the staff, made her sign and passed the order of her becoming the head of the department. I was so glad, and after that, in every department, even in our English department, Professor Jaspir Jain was the first head. And after that, I think in the English department, all through there have been women heads. No way. I'm so glad to see the change. Professor Agrawal, you have really traced the unfair deal of the Britishers and the Mughals. We have so much wisdom and knowledge in our Vedas and our Gita and Mahabharata and Upanishads, but there is no research and study being done on that. Very few people have read that. And the method of education, as in those days, the Rishis Munis used to have 4 or 5 students and give them personal attention and teach them verbally. Thank God they taught them verbally. The people who came to conquer us, they destroyed our libraries, our Vedas and Puranas. Because of this Rishis Munis teaching it orally, it has survived. Now, I think it is high time that instead of reading British literature, we should read our own, translate our own Vedas, Upanishads, Gita, Mahabharata, and get all that knowledge and do research on it and spread it not only in India but in the whole world. Let India become the master of our whole world. I am sure that all of you agree. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. For following this very insightful speech, we are now honored to hear from our guest of honor, Professor Raju Bhargav. Professor Raju Bhargav, former head of English at the University of Rajasthan and the Central University of Haryana, has over 4 decades of teaching and research experience. She has supervised more than 70 PhD and MPhil dissertation, authored 10 books, and published widely in national and international journals. Founder, editor of journal Voices, and a member of several global academic associations. Her specialization include linguistics, narratology, critical theory, and translation studies. I invite Professor Raju Bhargav to share her valuable thoughts on today's lecture.
Good afternoon, everyone. I was told by my professor from the department, of course, that no souls are saved after the first 10 minutes of the best of sermons. So, I believe that whatever I say might get lost in our hurry, in our determinations to visit other areas of interest. But anyway, here I am, and I seek only a few minutes. This is a memorial lecture for Professor K Kaul. I do not know if I'm really authorized to speak, because there are people here who weren't very close to Dr. Kaul and who know much more about him. But I was privileged to work with him fairly closely during my years in the department. Professor Kaul taught me Chaucer, as was just mentioned, and the first day that he entered the class with the prologue to the Canterbury Tales, we were mesmerized by the way he spoke Middle English. Yes, he could do it so well, I wouldn't even try to emulate the way that he enunciated it. When we say that Dr. Kaul has been a legacy, I think the generation next, in front, at the back, and my own generation here right near me, would not be able to comprehend what he imparted to the department. There have been 3 stalwarts whom I can name right now, who built this department into what it is. And let me tell you, a very prestigious, perhaps the most honored department on the campus it was. And Dr. Kaul was a spirit behind this becoming into what we are and carrying on the legacy. His voice still resounds in the corridors of the university, though let me tell you, soft-spoken, gentle, very dignified, wouldn't raise his voice from the classroom to his hermit's cove in what is today the staff room. That was the length and breadth that he exposed himself to. But within those 2 if we were allowed into the sanctum sanctorium, the learning was so touching to the heart and enlightening the mind. An indefatigable, passionate person for whatever he did. Yes, Varun, at home front as well. So, Dr. Kaul would be happy today to see that we are now moving forward. Forward into avenues and areas that did not even exist for intellectual critical exploration in the English department at that point of time. And as Professor Agrawal has mentioned, there is a lot to be and lot to become. For Dr. Kaul, at a personal level, I know that he looked down at me as a daughter. When I first came into the department, I was already married. And he could never for the life of me comprehend that somebody who's married and somebody who has another social individuality could come to study English literature, and he asked me why. And I said, I've known you, Dr. Kaul, you took my interview at one point of time, called me in when Professor Alur Janki Ram had to go for his PhD leave. And I know that the love, the infatuation that I have for you brings me here. That was Dr. Kaul for me, and for all those who have known him through his journey in the department. Much has been said, new areas have been explored, and that perhaps is what I would want to say at this point of time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing not only insights but also your cherished memory with us. Your words have touched us deeply and added a personal warmth to this memorial lecture. It is a matter of great pleasure for us that today we hear from Dr. Varun Kaul, son of Professor Kaul, a former medical practitioner at SMS Hospital and now serving at Unicare Hospital in Jaipur. He brings with him not only his own professional achievements, but also the living memory of his father. His words will help us remember Professor Kaul not only as a scholar, but as a man, as the teacher, as the father, whose life continues to shine through us, through the people, those he nurtured. Sir, I request you to address the gathering.
I feel honored and humbled to be asked to speak in front of such an august gathering. Respected Professor Agrawal, Vice-chancellor at Ajmer University, Professor Deepa Mathur, Professor of English, Professor Rajul Bhargav, and Dr. Sarojini, and all friends. Well, I belong to a different field. I belong to the medical field and not the literary field. But I can speak about my father from the personal level as a father. There are certain parts of his nature and his interests which have not been talked about today. For instance, he had a great love for Urdu poetry. And he used to devote 1.5 hours in the evening for pure Urdu poetry. Urdu poetry for him did not mean the Jagjit Singh kind of poetry. Urdu poetry for him meant Ghalib or Zawq, Faiz, where the Urdu flight of imagination is used. And he did not compromise on the time devoted to Urdu poetry. Be it anybody, any important person come to visit him, he would say, "Mera ye Urdu ka waqt hai, iske baad aa paiyege." I'm sorry. So, there's a very old episode I'm remembering, and the flashback in memory. I have so many episodes. Jaya Didi always says you should write a book about it, but for paucity of time, I'm not able to indulge in this. One of the episodes that was ringing in my mind just now was a few of them. I can detail them to you. Very old friend of his who was like a family friend, Mr. Manot. He asked him to guide an IAS officer called Mohinder Singh, who later on became the shipping secretary of India. So he was the secretary here, he lived in Hospital Road. His wife was a beautician, Miss Kelasi. And I think both of them are not alive today. So he came and, for 30 minutes he was talking about the property he had and the cars he had and what his son was doing and his son-in-law was doing. So at the end of the 40 minutes, my father said, "I hope you can take leave and I can devote my time to my Urdu literature now. Thank you so much." So he went away. After that, 10 minutes after, Professor Kaul rings up Mr. Banot and he said, "This man is not fit for a PhD. Please don't send him again to me. Goodbye." So he did not bother, about who's who. He was just very straightforward, and that's that. He used to put all the cards received from the Raj Bhavan into the waste paper basket. He never went to the at-home tea at the Raj Bhavan in his life, I think. He only went to Raj Bhavan when his father-in-law came here. Babu Sampurnanand was the governor of Rajasthan at one time. So Babu Sampurnanand, my grandfather, my nana had a special relations with him because he's the education secretary of UP and he was the education minister of UP. So he said, "Would you come with me?" So my father said, "आप बड़े आदमी हैं, मैं क्या जाऊँगा?" "नहीं, आप चलिए मेरे साथ, आप दामाद हैं हमारे." So the governor said कि ये तो मिलने ही नहीं आते हैं. तो मेरे फादर ने कहा कि मैं मिलकर आपसे क्या करूँगा, मुझे अंग्रेजी पढ़ानी है, मुझे आपसे मिलकर अंग्रेजी थोड़ी इम्प्रूव हो जाएगी मेरी. सीधे बोल दिया उन्होंने. So he was that kind of a person, straightforward. Then secondly, during the emergency, he was asked by Dr. Karju, who was then created Durlabji Hospital, to come and give a lecture on some political issue. My father criticized Indira Gandhi at that time, but I would say those times were different. Indira Gandhi, was told that during the emergency, the Professor Kaul has criticized you. So she rang up herself to Dr. Karju and said, "ये कौन है Professor Kaul जो ये बोल रहे हैं emergency के खिलाफ?" तो बताए, "ये सप्रू फैमिली के दामाद है, वही है ना ये?" तो कहा, "रहने दीजिए, बोलने दीजिए." So that was the kind of person he was. He did not bother कि उनके बारे में कोई क्या कहे. You did not allergic to, most of the time he was allergic to Hindi film music. But I used to put on the Vivid Bharati. So he used to go by, "तुम्हारी लता मंगेशकर बहुत जोर से गाती है, ये किसने गाया?" मैंने कहा, "ये पाना किशोर कुमार ने." After Sehgal, he's the next golden voice of India. So he appreciated Kishore Kumar, but did not like Lata Mangeshkar because he felt that the voice was very screechy in the higher octaves. So there's lots of other episodes, but I think it will go far too long. So thank you so much once again.
Thank you, sir, for sharing those heartful incidents and memories. And you have really made the event meaningful. Thank you. As a symbol of our appreciation for our guests and their valuable presence and invaluable contributions, we will now present the token of appreciation to our distinguished guest. I request Professor Deepa S.P. Mathur to kindly present a token of appreciation to our esteemed speaker, Professor S.K. Agrawal. Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Next, I invite Dr. Pooja Joshi to present a token of gratitude to Professor Raju Bhargava. Thank you, ma'am. I now request Dr. Mohit to present a gesture of thanks to Dr. Varun Kaul. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. These tokens are a small gesture to our deep appreciation for your presence, guidance, and contribution to this event. All good things must come to an end, so we have reached the final segment of our program. To propose the official vote of thanks, I invite our convener, Dr. Arun Singh, on the stage.
Thank you, Niharika. Programs conclude, but ideas reverberate in the air. First of all, on behalf of the Department of English, I extend my heartfelt regards to Professor S.K. Agrawal for accepting our invitation, sir. Thank you very much. In the words of K.C. Bhattacharya, you inspire us to evade the shadow mind, which has impacted upon us very badly, very egregiously in terms of criticism and in terms of interpreting literature. I thank Professor Raju Bhargava Madam for coming to us, joining this program as guest of honor. Thank you very much, Madam. I thank Professor Dr. Gaurav Kaul for joining this program, sir, for remembering Professor Kaul's life incidents. Thank you very much, sir. I'm thankful to Professor Deepa S.P. Mathur, our beloved hat, who always inspires us to organize such beautiful programs which promote academic integrity and academic environment. I feel thankful to all the senior faculty members of the department and the university for joining this program. Thank you, all the senior faculties. I extend my thanks to my colleagues of the department who always contribute in every academic program in a wholehearted way. I extend my thanks and regards and also special thanks, my heartfelt thanks to the volunteering students of the department who are always working as pillars of these programs. Garima, Priyanka, Niharika, Vishwajit, Vikas, Krishna, Asutosh, Aman, Abhinav, Prateek, Abhimanyu, Kanchan, Dimple, Manisha, Anjali. I'm not able to spell everyone's name, but thank you all, dear ones. Thank you all. All the audience, I'm grateful to who spared their valuable time for attending this program. I'm thankful to our office staff, Harsh, Chandan, Shambhuji, and Santosh Bhaiji, who are always behind such programs, who work very hard behind, which the contribution of which is always unseen behind these programs, but who work very wholeheartedly for us. I'm also thankful to the GAD staff and the staff at VC Secretariat for their help and the cooperation. Thank you very much. Thank you all. Aabhar sabhi ka, dhanyawad.
Thank you, sir. With that, our formal program comes to a close. As a mark of respect for our nation, I request everyone to please stand for the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल गंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तब शुभ नामे जागे तब शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तब जय गाथा जन गण मंगल दायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. This marks the conclusion for today's ceremony. Thank you all for your graceful presence. Thank you to our honorable guests, speaker, faculty and students. We hope the lecture has been insightful for you as it has been for us. To all our guests, the refreshment is awaiting you at the department. Thank you everyone for being here, and it is a delightful event that I have been able to compare. Thank you so much.